So good morning students. Today again we are going to continue with our current chapter, that is biological classification, and by now if you understand that we are going to, we have already completed the kingdom Monera, and we have started with the next kingdom, that is kingdom Protista, right? And in kingdom Protista we have talked about the general features, the habitat, right? Some of the features that are unique to these organisms, the different groups of the protists. So today we're going to start with the next concepts on it. But before that, as I had said that we'll complete that one concept that was left out. So we're going to go and we are going to understand that first, followed by these concepts. So I hope you can see the screen, and we're going to talk about that particular structure. Let me open it. Yes, okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes,
Good. So, what I wanted to discuss on the first day, along with the concept on the Kingdom Monera, was the structure that I had talked in the beginning, that was based on the plasmid, right? So, along with along with the regular DNA, the chromosomal DNA, we have an additional double-stranded circular DNA that is called the plasmid. We had a short discussion on it. So let's understand what I wanted to say on that day. So DNA here is going to be typically circular, right? The plasmid DNA, and the regular DNA, the chromosomal DNA, is going to combine with certain protein called the non-histone protein. And this non-histone protein, they are going to be positively charged. The DNA is going to be negatively charged. Remember, because of phosphate group in the DNA, and the protein is positively charged, and together they're going to be present in the nucleoid region, right? So beside the regular nuclear DNA, some of the bacteria have an additional chromosome, and that is going to be called the plasmid DNA. I'm sorry, it is called the plasmid DNA. Now one second point of difference here is the bacteria here are having one type of chromosome, sorry, ribosome, and these ribosomes are going to be of different type. Okay, it is called 70S ribosome. Now, when we go to the cell chapter, we will learn that in case of the eukaryotic, it is different type. In case of prokaryotic, it is of different type. Remember 70S, and in case of eukaryotic, it is going to be of 80S. Again, we will talk about that when we go to the cell chapter. Now, what about the plasmid? As I said, plasmid is extra chromosomal circular DNA. We have the bacterial DNA, as you can see on the screen. Along with this, these plasmids are going to be present, and as you have already remembered or learned about, the plasmid is going to provide certain additional feature, you can say, right? Additional feature or characters that are going to help the organism in certain way to survive or to adapt to that particular situation. So some benefit these plasmids are going to be giving it to the bacteria. And remember, just like the the bacterial DNA, the chromosomal DNA, these plasmid DNAs also can self-replicate. Now, this is regarding unique, that is, we do not find it in other groups. That is the conjugation in bacteria. Right. So we know that bacteria divide or bacteria reproduce by asexual mode. Right. By what? What is the mechanism called? Binary fission, right? If you are not, do you know about that or not?
Yes, sir.
Right. So by binary fission, the bacteria is going to divide. But there is another method by which the bacteria can exchange the genetic material, and that is more often the plasmid DNA get transferred from one bacteria to another bacteria. Typically, listen that these two organisms are involved in case of sexual reproduction, but this is not asexual reproduction, but there is exchange of chromosome, exchange of DNA between two bacteria, and this process is called conjugation. So what you see here, you can see on the first step that there is the plasmid, right, and there is a structure called pilus, right, and there this particular structure called sex pilus, actually it is going to connect between the donor bacteria and the recipient bacteria, and that will allow these two organisms, these two bacteria, to transfer the genetic material, that is a plasmid DNA, from the donor to the recipient. And you can see at the end, finally, what is going to happen? Both of these, donor and the recipient, which was in the beginning, the recipient did not have the plasmid DNA, as you can see. But at the end, the recipient gets a copy of the plasmid DNA, and now it can act as a donor. That means the bacteria can survive in, for example, the bacteria can transfer the plasmid from one organism to the next, from one to the next with the help of conjugation. Now, in what condition, in what situation it might be helpful? A very simple situation, let me tell you, that imagine the bacteria are growing in a medium that is going to contain certain antibiotic, and the plasmids have the ability to resist the antibiotic. And one of the bacteria is having this particular plasmid that is allowing it to be resistant. So what it will do is, by the conjugation method, it is going to transfer that plasmid to the remaining bacteria in the medium with antibiotic, and that basically will allow the bacteria to survive in a medium containing antibiotic. So the plasmid along with the conjugation allows the bacteria to survive in certain extreme condition and quickly transfer the feature from one bacteria to the next bacteria by transferring the plasmid. And that's why we say it might look very simple on the surface, right? The bacteria is very simple organism. We might say it takes hardly 20 minutes to reproduce, but the mechanisms that are involved is very, very, very complex, right? Another thing that I was telling yesterday is why we call it as complex. Simple structure, but it is very complex, we say. So another example I will give is, let's say you put a very, let's say you put the antibiotic into the into a medium that is going to contain the bacteria. These bacteria, they have something called efflux pump, and this efflux pump, they quickly pump out all the antibiotics from the bacterial system. Second example I'll give you, again with the same antibiotic only. So the moment you put antibiotic, as I was talking about, they have the plasmid, and this plasmids can produce a certain protein. This protein is going to go and damage that antibiotic much before it can cause any harm to the bacteria, right? So these things, this kind of mechanism, we do not have it. So in some case, what we say is, although it is very simple, or it takes a very small time to reproduce, the regeneration time is shorter, but the complexity that is surrounding it is going to be much higher. Anyway, so let's go back to, let's see, I think we were, okay, bacteria is over, protista we're talking about, and yes, let's start with this. Classification, yes. I hope you remember this, that protists can be classified into the photosynthetic protist, that is chrysophyte, dinoflagellates. Again, I made a mistake, it is not dino, it is actually A is not there actually, it is dino, D-I-N-O, dinoflagellates. And then you have the euglenoids, and the next group is going to be slime molds and protozoan protists. So we have already learned about the chrysophytes, dinoflagellates and euglenoids. I hope you remember that. Right, dinoflagellates, diatoms you remember, then diatomaceous earth we have talked about, right? This one, again, it is all Di. Then you have talked about dinoflagellates, right? There are two set of flagella. Again, somebody was asking, sir, why two flagella? Very simple, the two flagella are going to help in locomotion. The primary role, that is locomotion. And then we had the euglena. Euglena had the pellicle, okay? And the pellicle is going to be replacing the cell wall, right? Here there is no cell wall, instead there is a protein, thick protein layer called the pellicle. And we are seeing this one, and we will start with the next one, that is going to be the slime molds. Right, so slime molds is very unique, as I said earlier, and these are saprophytic protists. They do not have the chlorophyll pigments or chloroplast within them, and the body is going to move along the decaying twigs and leaves and engulfed in the organic matter. Yes, Samiksha, you have doubt?
No, sir.
You have raised the hand. Anyways, so the body is going to move along the decaying twig and leaves engulfing the organic material. And under favorable condition, what they do is they're going to aggregate and they're going to form something called the plasmodium. Now, under unfavorable condition, they're going to form fruiting body and they're going to form the spores. Now, spores are going to be produced under unfavorable condition. Now, what do you mean by that is, we'll take the question later on a little bit, okay? So, let's understand this. So, what you have is, you can see that this is a mature plasmodium, right? Okay, let me tell, plasmodium, that is your slime mold. We call this as a plasmodium or the slime mold. And they are going to form the sporangia form, right? The spores are released, they actually germinate and they give rise to amoeboid cells, and these amoeboid cells and flagellate cells, and they're going to fuse and they form the zygote form the young plasmodium, and it is going to go for the mature plasmodium. Now, this is its life cycle, but I'm going to show you something better than this. So there is a video, quickly we'll see that, and then we will talk about the remaining concepts. Just hold on for a minute. Okay, I think this is the one. Yeah. So I'm going to now share the screen. Yeah, I hope you can see the screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
I'm going to play.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. These are slime molds. Remember this. It's a very old video, but it works. These are amoeboid cells, individual amoeboid cells. Look how they are coming together. These are all the amoeboid cells. So what you saw were all the amoeboid cells that came together, and sometimes what they will do is they're going to form this fruiting body. And in this fruiting body, on the top, what you see, this particular part, this is the sporangium where the spores are going to be produced. And this particular part is the place where you see the stalk. And all the amoeboid cells that are here in this particular part of the stalk, they basically die. They sacrifice so that the fruiting body is going to be formed, and all the cells that are here in the sporangium, all the amoeboid cells part of the sporangium, they survive and they give rise to the spore. And these are all the real images under microscopes. This is a scientist. Okay, now could you understand something out of that? Should I repeat or it's all right?
Yes, sir. Understood, sir.
Understood? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now I'm going to show
Yes,
something.
sir.
Yes, good. So now I'm going to show you something that is from a recent time and a very interesting one, a time lapse, and then we'll go to another video. So there are total 3 videos on slime mold itself. So, okay, 1 second. Let me share again the screen. Screen you can see?
Yes, sir.
How many of you are not getting the audio? Or are you getting it?
Not getting, sir.
Okay, one second.
Getting, sir.
Okay,
Not getting, sir.
Not getting, sir.
sure. One second.
Not getting, sir.
Okay, fine. I am trying again. Okay, let me go to share again. And what else? Okay, right. So here we have the stalk and this is the sporangia part. Now what will happen is this sporangia part, they are going to be dispersed. It is going to break and it is going to release the spore, and this spore is going to again give rise to the amoeba. So clear on that part?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. So anyway, you have a different type of video that is again available on the internet. There is one more video clip that is related to that, but again, not now. Some other time we'll be seeing that particular video. So that is regarding your slime molds. Let me go back to the PowerPoint so that we'll continue. Okay, I hope I can share it. Yeah. Okay, so here, as I was talking about, is when the food is available, when the the condition is favorable, there is going to be plasmodium cells, and when it is going to be unfavorable, there is no food, it is going to form the fruiting body, and that is going to be forming the spores, as we talked about. So here on this right side, you can see this is the sporangium stalk, and this particular part is going to contain the spores, and this is going to be the regular organism. Now, coming to the last type of the protist, that is going to be the protozoan protists, right? Now, again, the protozoan protists are of four different types, and all of the protozoans are going to be heterotrophs, right? They are going to be dependent, they are typically parasites, and they are going to be dependent on the other organisms. For example, we have the amoeboid protozoans, and one of the example of that is going to be the amoeba, also the entamoeba, right? Remember, there is a disease that is caused by this entamoeba. For example, entamoeba histolytica, that is the organism, and that is called your amoebic dysentery. So here, this amoeboid protozoans, many of them act as parasites, right? Infective agents. Now, the second category is going to be the flagellated protozoans. For example, here the protozoan is going to be Trypanosoma brucei, and trypanosoma also causes certain disease like the sleeping sickness, and here this particular protozoan is going to be consisting of flagella. Now the third category, as the name suggests, is going to be the ciliated protozoans. They contain the cilia throughout the organism, and one very simple example of that is going to be the paramecium, right? Paramecium have cilia throughout the organism, throughout the body, and that is going to help them to basically move from one place to the next, or they help in the process of locomotion. Next up, we have the sporozoans, and we have the example of very common plasmodium. Now we have different type of plasmodium, and the plasmodium, one of them is going to be falciparum, and this plasmodium falciparum, and also there is another one called plasmodium vivax. They are responsible for the malarial disease in human beings, right? So again, here they are also going to be parasitic in nature. So here, as we are saying, they are going to be heterotrophic in nature. They do not have chlorophyll pigments, and they are of these four different types. So that is what you have to understand when we talk about the protozoans. Now, here you see an image of the paramecium, and what you see, there is a oral groove where the food is going to be taken in. There is an anal pore where all the excess material is going to be thrown out. There are going to be food vacuoles, and there is going to be pellicle, contractile vacuole, and you can see all over there is going to be the cilia. And of course, they do have the cell membrane. There is no cell wall in this case. But what is more interesting is there are going to be the two nucleus. Okay, so there is one larger nuclei and there is a smaller nuclei. So these two are required by the paramecium, but only one of them is essential for them to survive. So there is a small task for you all. Find out, if you can, the role of the larger nuclei and the smaller nuclei in case of paramecium. I will give you a hint. One is essential for the organism to survive, whereas the other one is required for a specific stage, for a specific process in the organism. So try to find it out. Okay, I'll give you a reminder later on. What is the role of large nuclei and what is the role of small nuclei, and which one should be there or which one must be there within the paramecium for it to have the regular growth or regular development. That is regarding the kingdom protist, and then we have the kingdom mycota. Now the kingdom mycota refers to the kingdom fungi. But before going in from there, I'm going to ask you all, if you have any questions, please ask on this particular concept. Yes, somebody is asking, Akshat. Yeah. Are euglenoids and euglena the same? Okay. Euglenoids is a group. Euglena is the example. Very simple. Clear, Akshat? Akshat, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Anybody else, or should we move forward to the fungus? Should we go to the fungus, or yes, sir, Akshat?
But they have different mode of nutrition, sir.
I just that is
Euglenoids
what.
have photosynthetic and Euglena have myxotropic.
Okay, that is not exactly what I said. We have learned that the mixotrophic mode of nutrition is a mode of nutrition where there is both autotrophic and heterotrophic organisms. Now, euglena being an example of euglenoid, they also have the mixotrophic mode of nutrition. So here, what happens is the euglena, under the presence of the sunlight, can go for photosynthesis, and when there is no sunlight available, they will give up the photosynthetic pigments and they will go for the heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So mixotrophic mode of nutrition is something that we find in case of euglena and some of the euglenoids. Euglenoids, remember, is a group that we are talking about. Am I clear, Akshay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else, or should we move to the next one? Yes, Samiksha. Satpati. Yes, sir, Samiksha.
Please send the sir. Can you please send the recording of this class after? I
Yeah.
can't join because net problems.
Okay. I'll try to upload the remaining video also. I'll try to recordings are there. We have to just upload these things. Here also there is some kind of internet problem sometimes, so there might be some problem. I will upload these things and I will share you the link in the group. I think 2 or 3 videos already in the first 1 or 2 classes already uploaded on my channel. The remaining things I will upload and share you the link. No problem.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure. Anything else?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
sir, the first concept today you said about the DNA, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is of the
The
kingdom monera.
composition. Yeah.
Composition.
General, I'm saying. No, sir. Yes, the composition of DNA.
Yeah,
Moneras.
sure. So when we talk about the composition of the monera or any organism, right? So there are 2 things. We are talking about 2 different components altogether. One, we are talking about the DNA, and one, we are talking about the chromosome. Okay. Now both are not the same, right? They're related. How they're related? Try to understand. DNA is going to be associating with certain protein, and these protein are positively charged. Okay. Now DNA, remember, is negatively charged. Now, when you have a positively charged biomolecule combined with a negatively charged biomolecule, what you see here, DNA combines with the protein because they're having opposite charge. So when these 2 biomolecules come together, they actually start coiling. I'll just tell you what happens in the higher organism, then I'll come back here. So what happens in our case is, in human beings, the sheer length of the DNA that we have is around 2.2 meters. Right? 2.2 meters. But this 2.2 meters of DNA must be fit into a very small space, that is the nuclei. And because of this, the 2.2 meters of DNA have to be supercoiled and packed inside. And for the supercoiling, the DNA is associated with the protein. It organizes itself into a structure. Then additional proteins are added. And finally, they give rise to the structure that is called chromosome. Okay. Now, it is the same even in the case of the lower organisms. For example, in case of the prokaryotic organisms, here the DNA associates with some of the protein, and this protein here in case of bacteria, these proteins are called non-histone protein. And these DNA and protein, that is non-histone protein, they then give rise to the, we can say, the bacterial chromosome. Okay, they give rise to the bacterial chromosome. And this bacterial chromosome is what is the main chromosome that is present, we are saying, in the area that is in the nucleoid region. They are organized into that particular region. Clear? So here we have the nucleoid region with the bacterial chromosome, which is made up of DNA and proteins. The DNA is negatively charged and the proteins are positively charged. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Yes, I think there is some problem with the internet on this side also. There is that's why the video is lagging. I'm going to anyway send the I'll upload and send it. Okay, no problem at all. You can see it later. There is a problem with the internet, I think, on this side. Are you clear with these things?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
If there are some problem with the internet, anyway, this will be uploaded. You can check it out later. Now, and on tomorrow's class, we are going to probably complete this chapter. That is, we will be completing the Kingdom Microda tomorrow with the basic features and the 3 classes. If not tomorrow, day after tomorrow, it will be over. And with that, I think there is a small introduction to Kingdom Plantae and Kingdom Animalia. As I said earlier, there are going to be 2 separate chapters on that, so we will be talking about those in this particular chapter only. Okay, so anyway, I think we're going to stop with this. I guess.
Sir, unit test will be started, sir.
Have you got any circular? I think no, right? For you, there is no circular, no unit test as of now. Okay, when it is there, it will be announced to you.
Okay, sir.
Yes, when it is going to be organized, it will be announced to you at least a week before, 5 to 7 days before itself. You will be made aware of the unit test. So no need to worry about it. Clear?
Okay, sir.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to end the video now. I think there some. Is it clear or video is clear or still problem is there?
No, sir. Video is starting.
Okay, fine. Even I'm not able to hear the clear. Okay, anyway, let's continue tomorrow.
Audio.
Yeah, okay. Audio is going only.
Sir, please send the recording of this.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, fine then. Let's meet tomorrow. I'm going to send you the video here. Okay, no problem.